We are live, coming at you live.
I hope that made it. That was great. You can imagine the lead in, and then Minnie comes on. It's like, are we officially recording? By the way, I just before we get started, Dreamforce, like, is it back? How was it for you?
It was great for us. We hustled at the last minute to get a bunch of pre-booked meetings, and we had a separate meeting space that I think everybody appreciated, like Scale did as well, in terms of not in the Moscone vortex, but just some place to come chill. We ran an ice cream social impromptu because one of our customers really wanted to have ice cream, and we were jammed for 2 days solid. So I do think it is back to a certain extent. I haven't seen the final total numbers. I don't know if you guys have, because they were running promos hard going into it, that they were giving all kinds of discounts on passes. But the crowds felt real. The booths, the whole trade show floor was also hopping.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
From ABM to PLG, from Medic to MedPick, the world of business is constantly evolving. We'll cover the who, what, where, when, why, and most importantly, how you get the transaction. I'm Matt Amundson, and he's Craig Rosenberg. Let's get started.
all right. Well, I'm going to actually start the intro process here by saying, there's some people where you've gotten accustomed to knowing. I've known Minnie for a long time. And the other day I brought up her name and someone's like, is that how you pronounce her last name? So I've been calling you Minnie Peiris for a long time. Is that correct?
You are on the money, my man. So yeah.
Okay. So
well, it's close. It's Peiris is the official way to say it. So ignore the EI.
Ooh, I kind of like that better because, like, if you had a social handle, it'd be P-Ris.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Man, I like that. Look at you.
Actually, my social handle is miniature because
Yeah.
miniature.
Yeah, you're right. That's better.
Yeah, that is much better.
So, on the show, we just actually had this thing where we're talking about why did we name it the transaction, is like, because we want to cover all these things that happen in the go-to-market that lead ultimately to the transaction. And so we've tried to have this mix of folks from thought leaders to operators and across different disciplines. And so, today we have an operator who I met when she was running marketing at NetSuite, which, looking back, by the way, I don't know if we'll spend time on this today. That is an iconic, epic run of Silicon Valley company, right? I mean, that was pretty amazing what you guys did there. And then over multiple companies after that, doing work for Minnie and just watching her do her thing. And then she, like Matt, was at EIR here with us at Scale Venture Partners, which was really fun.
So much fun.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I wish I could pay more. I mean, people have so much fun doing this, and like,
we'll both be back. You know that, right? So.
Oh, yeah. Boomerangs accepted. Boomerangs accepted. Actually encouraged. And but over that time, and I don't know if Matt knew her, but like you just have to watch Minnie operate, and then how amazing she is as an effectuator of transactions. As I was thinking about leading into today, because by the way, Minnie, I don't know if you know this about you, you're very strategic and capable of tying the tactics back to the strategy. And like that is a real CMO. That's what they do. And like, so it's just, honestly, it's awesome to have you on the show. We have a ton of respect for you. Matt picked you up late, but he was very excited to have you on as well. Thank you. We'll make sure we note that we received the heart from Minnie, please, for those listening on the audio only version. So Minnie Peiris,
yeah,
is here with us today. Welcome to the transaction. How you doing?
Thank you. Happy to be here. I'll add on to what makes a great CMO is the last part is you got to make sales think like it was all their idea. That's the other secret to CMO success.
You know what? I totally agree with that. I have an anecdote, and then I'll bring up the key question to get this started. So when we were first evangelizing account based at Topo, one of the key elements, which now I feel like we're all, as an industry, we're just doing much better, was this idea of the ICP and the target account list.
Mm-hmm.
The issue was, in the initial stages, one of the reasons why we didn't want to use ABM, because we just didn't want marketers to do this on their own. They were getting caught with this all the time.
Yep.
And they were even in meetings, they'd say, okay, here's the target account list. And sales, half paying attention, would say, okay, we're in. And then I always said, no, in 3 months, you're going to get caught. So what we told them, I learned this. I was doing a council, and this CMO brings up this thing. He called it the leave it on the desk play. And he's like, here's what you do. You create the target account list, and you walk into the CRO or VP of sales office, and you go, hey, listen, team put together an initial take using, a lot of the data we captured from you on what could be a target account list. I'll just leave it with you, your call. And he's like, the key is, if in the ELT in the next month or so, that CRO VP of sales comes back and says, you guys have a great idea, this is what we should use for our target account list. And he's like, then I was golden. The leave it on the desk plays exactly into what Mitty just brought up.
Love it. Harder to do in our virtual world these days, but love it.
Really leave things on people's desks. And there's really no access to their desk.
Leave it in your Slack with a share link.
Yeah, if you happen to be in a work from home CRO and you want to leave it on their desk. All right. So here's how we start the show, Minnie, and we just kind of go from there, which is we ask the big question is, what's something that the market is doing today? It could be anything, best practices, approaches, tactics, etc. Where they think it's right, but it's actually wrong, and they should be doing something different. And so what do you think those things are? And then what should they do differently about them? Go.
Okay. So I'm going to phrase it as a big theme, but then I have like a couple specific examples under that. I think the big theme, and this is particularly for B2B marketers, they continue to forget that it's still people who buy software. Right? So we're all out there, like you just mentioned, it's a target account list. But when you peel that back and you look at, okay, who are the ideal customer profiles, and frankly, what are the psychographics of those companies that make them attractive to you? It's about the people. So 2 ways this shows up. One is like everybody right now is trying to use different channels, different tactics, trying to get their message out there, but they've forgotten the importance of brand strategy as you bring that to life. You got to tell a story. You got to give people a why to care about. Like, why are they going to pick you over somebody else? Why should they pay attention? Why should they even take your phone call, right? Because that's hard these days. Continue, the struggle is real on that. Running the BDR team, I can appreciate that. So this is how you have to be able to communicate and like create that momentum for yourself. So the anchor up behind, people buy software is very much about brand strategy. You got to start there. If you don't have your story right, and that goes all the way to sales, right? So this is about the transaction. How do winning sales reps do it? Is they tell a story. It's like you're the director for a Pixar movie. And actually, Craig, this is anecdotally shout out. I think the most impactful session I have ever sat through in my life was when you brought in the guy from Pixar into the CMO council that Topo ran before you were at scale.
Thank you.
I loved what he said about that, the story arc. This is how you tell a case study story, a customer story. This is how you run a sales meeting, right? These are all good things to make sure you have a protagonist, because it's about the person. People have to buy into their struggle, and then you have to take them down at the depths of despair. And then you talk about how, hey, we can build you up and get you to the happy place. And so that storytelling muscle is one I think we've lost. And so brand strategy, starting there, anchoring there, really comes back to because people buy software. And the other thing I will say I'm seeing as a trend right now, which, everybody jumped so hard onto the AI bandwagon, and you to go out there and you talk to customers, and they're like, I don't know. I've been told I need to do something. My investors, my board, all of my leaders, everyone's telling me I need to do something. I have no idea how this applies to my day to day and how to leverage it. Right. So I think that's marketers have fallen into that trap of, okay, shiny new object. I have to run over here. But if you stay true to your core and remember that people buy software, you have to be able to thread that needle and come back to really being able to articulate how that's going to impact the person's day to day. I'll pause there.
Okay. Wait, start going. I'm trying to find the name of the dude that we had at, I'm sorry. You know me.
You do your
The
research.
Pixar dude? Yeah.
That was amazing. I got to go get him again.
I could probably go find my notebook because I'm old school. I take notes on paper. I save my notebooks. I could probably go find it in 15 minutes or so, but I won't leave you hanging for that.
By the way, I just thing on the Topo. It's incredible. There's all these posts about the Topo Summit still on Google.
Love that.
Yeah.
The
Anyway,
internet doesn't forget. This is why you tell your teenagers, be careful what you post, right?
that's very true.
So to anchor on what Minnie was talking about, I talk about this a lot. People, when they're putting together their messaging frameworks, they focus a lot on the is and the does, and almost everybody is leaving out the means part. And I think or people are conflating what means, right? So if I use Marketo as an example, we talked about what Marketo is. Marketo is a marketing automation platform. What does it do? Is it automates the silly and simple parts of marketing and allows you to get more programs out the door. What it means, people would say, oh, what it means is I can do twice as much work. No. What it means is you become a marketing rock star, you get promoted, you go from being an IC to a manager to a director to a VP to a CMO. And what
And
we
you
were
get
able
home in time to see, go to your kid's baseball game.
That's right. That's right. So you make more money and you spend more time with your family. That's what it means, right? And I think people are conflating what means, or they're just leaving it out completely and just saying, hey, we are this thing and this is what it does. So hopefully you care, right? Hopefully that's enough to get you excited. And the reality is it's not enough to get you excited. And that's why there's so much bland marketing today. We talked to another CMO earlier this week, one who was working at a brand or working at a company that utilized brand as its key differentiator in a very, very crowded space. And they were able to cultivate like true differentiators because people were just like, yeah, I'm aware of that company and that company's cool. And I understand what they're trying to do. And I understand the impact that it makes on me, not just me, the professional, or not just me, the business, but actually me as a human being. And I think that is something that is totally lost in marketing right now.
Agreed. And I think so. Reflecting on where I think Ambra was a teeny tiny startup that I was at because it was a bit of a passion project, digital health. We were moving medical imaging to the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
We used to get inbound around sort of acquisition interest, and they thought we were way bigger than we actually were from a revenue perspective, from a size perspective. Why? Because we created this ethos and culture and image. So there were a few things that went with that. Um, we did create a brand that was associated with innovation, and obviously in healthcare, particularly in imaging, like radiologists just weren't used to being talked to that way. So we had that going for us as one of our pillars, and then we invested in them. So this is like the most weird offshoot of creating customer culture that I've done, but we founded a women in radiology leadership forum, and we started it with like 20 people, but that thing grew to become the anchor event at pretty much the biggest conferences and trade shows that we've had. It was called RadX at the time. It's now called Rad Equal, but it had this massive like rising tide effect that we could never have anticipated. Now, if you're going to run that sort of play, like you got to pick your people, and we did very well in picking out of our current customers who were leaning in on innovation and had some cachet themselves. So this is where personal brand of the individuals that you're cultivating and investing in, you can make that work in your favor. If, like you said, like you're highlighting their career path, you're helping them get noticed, and it was a massive unlock. So
Yeah. But well, first of all, Matt, when we were talking to in the other conversation that where the brand outran the product in I don't think I'm not talking in Mini's use case on the product, but like they look like they were the queens of the ball, right? In that, and by the way, I was just thinking about all these scenarios where the brand far outstripped the value of the product. It's pretty amazing what marketing can do. I won't bring up examples because some of them are our friends.
You might be calling people out. Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing. But but the community that you built that was incredible. But that's part of this idea that we want to sort of insert ourselves into the people that buy this software and get close to them. Is that kind of it?
Exactly. Because it was the individual. So basically, how I sourced our like founding team. First off, we had fantastic woman lean in with us from Weill Cornell, Geraldine McGinty. We're still friends. And she was our anchor who then we helped leverage to go recruit people. And we picked folks, the thing we looked for, and this is how it ties back to how do you create your ICP? We looked for people who had leaned in on social media. So were they active on Twitter? Were they active on LinkedIn? Because we could tell they had an innovation mindset. And so and frankly, this was best use of donuts I've ever done at a conference. We were in Portland. And we were at an imaging trade show, and they had this one session on social media inserted in, like, how can radiologists leverage this? And so we decided, and Portland has good donut game. So are you voodoo daddies or uh, anyway, so we started this whole thing around like who had the best donuts, and we said we will bring donuts to that social media session based on what people voted for. So it was like, and this was all happening real time while we were at the conference. And that was how we recruited basically our anchor set of folks that founded the Rad Execs Council, if you will.
I love the use of signals. Like you use data to figure out the best people to go after. That's like original signal selling kind of action there by Mini.
Yeah, you can still do it today at scale. Like we were brute forcing that stuff back in the day, but
yeah, no, it's amazing. By the way, on the donut thing, speaking of branding, so I took my kid. My favorite place is Randy's Donuts, and I had my kids down there for a basketball tournament. I'm like, I got to take you to this donut place. And we pull in, and it's Randy's. I mean, they're like, oh yeah, we know this place because Iron Man sat on that donut and had and it's like, and I was like, yeah, you see it in all the movies. By the way, that they have the best apple fritter in the United States, Randy's Donuts.
All right.
How many people know that? All right, let's keep going. So, but I love this because, I mean, do we feel like it gets lost? Just this idea of the core brand, and then let me ask that first. And then one of the things that I always appreciated about Minnie when she brought this to the table and working with some of the portfolio companies, frankly, was she like, okay, we're going to take a step back, and she could lead them through something credible, at least to have an idea of their identity in 2 hours, 3 hours. I mean, like there was a lot of discovery to understand what they were doing, and she had her own theories, but like, I'm trying to remember all the elements, but like, why do we exist? And like some of these things. So like, I want to do two things. One is we feel like it's missing. Two, it is hard, but it doesn't sound like at least getting started is like.
Yeah, I think people shy away from it it's hard work. And frankly, this is sort of like, personal mantra. Like, you have to know yourself before you can go tell others your story.
Mm.
So it is a lot of soul searching that you have to do as a company, ties into your mission and your vision and why are we here? Why did we start doing this in the first place? Um, and you have to stop thinking about it from a tech perspective. So that's the other thing we always fall into the trap of, like, the technology is the last thing you get to. It's more of, what are we here to help people do?
Mm.
Right. And that's hard. So you have to cut through all the layers. But look, for founders and founding teams that really know why they got started in the first place, it's a lot easier. If you sort of like grew your way to it, or you started with an original premise and you've had to make so many pivots along the way because of market pressures, and now you've like forgotten your identity, that's when it gets harder and maybe takes a few more turns and takes prompting. It is also very data intensive. Like, you got to go talk to your customers, got to have that input, got to go look at the market, you have to go, look at the competitors. But then it does come back to like knowing yourself at a deeply fundamental level.
Yeah. And then what do you guys do, both of you guys here? What about and not this is a terrible word, just use the word because it's the one that comes to mind, and I don't have enough brain power to pivot it, but like, you'll get the idea. It doesn't mean, but like enforcement or internal amplification, like, and then keeping that up, right? So I mean, you did NetSuite at scale. We were probably adding new employees every week. So tell us about that, you guys. Like, it's one thing to go build it. I've seen many marketers that pull out this off the shelf, well, digital shelf. Hey, no, we've done all that, and then but nobody, it's not coming.
Yeah. Look, we had at NetSuite, I'll tell you, I was fortunate to work for a CEO who was an ex marketing badass. And continues to be. So we had this simple, like, 3 light bulb slide that was in everything we did. First light bulb was, it's the cloud. So that was a rock that we were pushing uphill at the time, but got easier. Second light bulb was, it's the suite. So for us, that was a very simple way to articulate, how are we different than just your accounting system, right? We have more that we can offer businesses. That one did, as we went more up market, we did morph that a little bit, but it was still about more than just, accounting would be the way I would phrase it, right? And then the third one did vary for us a little bit. At the start, it was, we're about SMBs. Then it became for us about verticals and industries. So, we really understood how your unique business runs. So those 3 light bulbs were sort of what we made sure every new person rolling on. As we grew, as I said, we did make some adjustments when we started going into more mid-market, but that is to this day still true for what NetSuite is.
So I use so we talk a little bit about influencers, right? I use the most important influencer for this within an organization, and that's the CEO. And a lot of times I've worked at early stage companies with CMOs that were developers and engineers. And the first conversation that I have with them, usually during the interview process, is, are you comfortable saying the same thing for the next 10 years? Because that really flies in the face of most engineers' brains, right? Like, they want to develop new stuff all the time. I'm like, oh, but we're going to be developing new stuff. I totally understand that. But we're going to serve our core audience, and we're going to have a core message that will always be at the center of everything that we do. And if every feature or subsequent product that we release cannot speak to that core message, then we're either need to pivot dramatically, or we need to probably rebrand the company. But getting the CEO to be comfortable saying the same thing over and over again is really important, because every time you do an all hands, every time you do annual reviews, every time we do internal communications that comes from the CEO, it's got to say the same thing over and over again. And if you can convince your CEO to say the same thing over and over again, the other executives will. And if the other executives will, their direct reports will. Now, this is it's not a one size fits all, but this is a great way to sort of start the strategy of getting everybody on the same page, having it start specifically with the CEO and having the conversation with that person that they have got to, they've got to be on board with that process, because if they are, everyone else will. The thing that I always say is like, the culture of every company is always the culture of the CEO. You can try to change things around here and there, but like the way the CEO behaves, the way they talk about the product is going to be the way that everybody else talks about the product as well. So that's really critical, number one. Number two, like, I think the thing is you have to sort of bring these things down from the mountain, right? So you've got to immortalize them in places, and those places need to be very prominent, whether they exist in physical spaces on the walls of your office, whether they exist in your Slack channels. They just need to be places where people can feel comfortable and see them. And then you also have to just reinforce it every time that you get together publicly, whether that's your company values or whether that's the customers that you serve. Look at me.
100% and all that. Yeah. I mean, I think we made this point when we ran the product launch workshop at the last Scale Summit. You cannot repeat yourself enough.
Mm-mm.
Customers are going to forget. Your own people are going to forget. So belligerent repetition. All in on that one, Maddie.
Yep.
All right, I got a surprise question. Then we'll let.
Oh, I love surprises.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, Does
it come with balloons? Can we do that thing?
So, well, one is the guy's name was Matthew Lunn, who was the Pixar story.
Oh, nice.
His speaking fees have increased significantly since I hired him at Togo Summit in 2017. By the way.
Nice.
So you boosted his career, just like
Look at
we were
this.
just talking about,
The guy was amazing. He came and did the executive one at the Battery, and then he's like, when we were talking to him 3 days before, he's like, well, you got me. Like, what do you want to do? We're like, well, will you also go back to the main event, do it? He's like, yeah, no problem. And so, no, it's the other way around. He was doing the main event. He's like, well, look, I mean, do you have anybody else? We're like, all right, we'll come to the exec event. Guy was amazing. Now he's done. Thank you for that note. Okay, here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to think for a sec. I want you to come up with an example of a B2B tech company that has built an exceptional brand that sort of fits what you guys just have been talking about for the last couple minutes, but you got to try to surprise us a bit.
Wow. Okay. It's hard to find the surprise factor. Jeez.
That's okay. Okay. Give us what your first instinct was, and then let's go with that.
So I had two that popped into my head pretty quickly, which was HubSpot and Zendesk. They both had sort of this hero, like you're the persona that comes out from them is like, you want to just get things done, you want to get it done quickly and simply, and they elevated and highlighted their customers in a strong way. So those were my two that like came to mind as we were thinking through that. But Matt, I'm sure you probably got some examples too.
The first one I thought about, but this may surprise you, may not, is Rippling. Rippling does a great job with, both their customers understand the value. I think their employees understand the value. I think people who are consumers of the product and not the customers are, I guess, the end customer, right? Like the customer of HR. They really understand the value. And I think that they're absolutely nailing it. Not a surprise before, like, whatever you consider happened at Zenefits. They were also nailing it at Zenefits before. So they've built like a really, that team has built like a really good way of sort of coming to market and sort of building a brand around the problems that they solve, but also getting their customers into that brand really, really effectively. So that's the one that comes to mind. I think the other one that I think about maybe that might be more surprising, it's more B2C though.
That's the people who do this well are B2C because they know the C is a person.
Because of that. Yeah, that is not an advantage, but that's what makes them so good at this.
Yeah, I know they have some B2B component to their business, but it is by and large B2C is Lifetime Fitness. What they are doing with their marketing nowadays, where they're talking about like it's not a gym, it's a country club, and sort of the visual story that they're creating like on their digital properties is amazing. It makes me wish there was a Lifetime in San Mateo. I think the closest one's in Walnut Creek, and I am not driving to Walnut Creek to work out. So
But so, God, all right, cool. All right, those are good. I
Can I make one other point since it's the transaction, but
yeah.
this brand piece that we're talking about, you can't forget the post-transaction part, right?
oh, you know what? Really good. So let's go there. Can I give you guys one I thought of as you were talking though?
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
Because I was nervous that I couldn't come up with some. I wanted surprising. By the way, on HubSpot, I think
Dump the chump. All right, let's
we
go.
forget that HubSpot is an example of the brand way outrunning the product. Big time.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were way more famous than they were in terms of like I remember talking to the Marketo guys. They'd be like, "Well, we don't really compete with them." It didn't look like that to the market because they just went out and did it. Okay, so this one is an all-time Qualtrics. Like think about how big they got. That was a survey instrument, a web-based survey instrument. Those guys, they created the category customer experience management or platforms, right? Off of essentially a survey instrument. And that made them way more famous. Like that was an example of if you create the category and define the category, you win it. Like that is crazy because I remember going, I got to try this Qualtrics thing. I'm like, this is SurveyMonkey.
Right. You're right. I mean, they kind of tied it to the whole NPS piece and good to great. Yeah.
That was amazing. Here, I'll give you another one that I really struck in that. But Maria's work at Aptus.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like that was a consulting product. I mean, there was no like, I mean, and they were like, they won. They were like the biggest in that category, and it was a mess, and like she just, I mean, that was just epic work there, man. I mean, honestly, if you think about what was, I mean, we all know the kind of inside baseball there, but like that was epic work. Okay. I want you to go back to this. This is important. The post transaction. And I don't know, were you bringing up in the context of brand or in how we need to something more?
I was bringing it up in the context of the people piece because it's a feedback loop, right? Like you can't make people the center of what you do if you don't have the success stories to feed that, and you're not going to get the success stories unless what you've delivered is actually giving value to the people and helping them get promoted, get home in time to be with their kids, or get on the golf course, or buy the Ferrari. Like that, there's a whole circle that has to happen, and one fuels the other. So that's the context I was bringing it up in.
But what do you do as it relates to post transaction in terms of the role of the CMO?
Well,
like how do you facilitate things there?
So the CMO has to have equal share on the customer part of it, right? So it is, how are you, a lot of times the CMO is owning that customer reference program. They should be involved in how services and CS engage with those customers. This is, I'm hopeful that we will get to that with my current gig, but I've always said, like, start with the report that you want to get out of a deployment, right? So you got to do the baseline before you start services engagement so that we can have a from to. This is always the piece that kills you when you go to do case studies. You don't have the before picture because they never bothered to document it. And then we've got what their metrics look like now because you've helped put that in place. But there's a magic unlock that can happen there if you're really tight and you're coming at it from the why. Like, why are we here? What are we here to help you with? and it all has to tie full circle to the story that you're trying to make sure articulates with lands with the customer.
Yeah.
But does that require, so that requires the documentation of the from?
Yes, that's definitely a must have. I mean, you can do it. You can sort of cobble your way there, and that's how we all do success stories and customer videos, and you can get them, but they've forgotten a lot of times and they don't have the old data. So if you have you get in with the services team early enough to set that motion in place, and then also like, look, customer success is, I know there's, when do you deploy customer success and where, like which segment of customers? That's a debate at the moment because everyone's looking at how is my end-to-end customer profitability look, right? But those folks are usually the keepers of all of the anecdotes about the customer, and they can make the story real. And so that's a big important piece I think a lot of CMOs forget to do is engage with the post-sale teams. And then support too. So I'm actually, selfish plug, I'm recruiting for a VP of product marketing at the moment. And so I've been interviewing some folks. And someone I spoke to the other day reminded me of a practice that we did at once upon a time at NetSuite. But like folks like Intel are not Intel, Intuit are obsessive about this. Everybody goes and does a day on the phones in support, which is like this amazing way. Cause if you've read, this is my one pet peeve. When you brought up Qualtrics, it reminded me like my one pet peeve about the whole NPS landscape is like the way that you move your needle is not through surveying your customers to death. And if you read the book, the nugget is you have to ask the ultimate question and follow up with the call where you have a real person to person conversation. Because again, it comes back to like people are buying software, people are using software. If you don't talk to those people, and
Yeah.
if you just kill them with automation and services like and surveys where they can't really tell you what's bugging them in honest, plain English, then you have failed.
Yeah. And I always say the best time to start a relationship with a customer is the second that they become a customer, especially as a marketer, right? The reason for that is, your sales team has just rolled out a red carpet for them over the course of however long that sales cycle was, made them feel incredible. If you can double down on that energy in the first, couple of days after they become a customer, whether that's you doing it directly or whether that's somebody in your team or whether that's a program that you've built to sort of to capitalize on the momentum and the excitement of becoming a new customer, it's just such a great way to start a 12-month relationship that you want to turn into a 24, 36, 48-month relationship. It's also the best time to get the wheels turning on doing a case study. Because to your point, it's not only just, hey, we need to get where you're coming from and then ultimately what our product has led you to, but it's also like, hey, you're such a great company. We'd love to do a story about you guys someday. People are like, oh yeah, great. They're all excited. Hopefully we all get the opportunity to market and sell great products, but sometimes we don't, right? Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we're making up for some shortcomings. But like, if you can impress upon them how valued they are as a customer, not just for the fact that they signed, but for what they can mean to growing your brand, this is such a great opportunity to start that process because they're primed for it. They go through an enablement, maybe something goes wrong. It takes an extra week, 2 weeks, like their affinity for your brand starts to wane, right? So you've got to strike while the sort of iron's hot there.
So I'll actually go a little bit further and tack on to what you said. So we actually measured this stuff at NetSuite of when to ask for, what's the optimal time to ask them for referrals too. And like basically we were trying to gauge when are they at that emotional high that you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not at signing. It's when they pick you as solution of choice. Because by the time you get to signing, legal and procurement have beaten each other up till they're like, oh my God, okay, now we got to go start this implementation thing. Like it is actually more of a low point than you would think. So you got to hit them when they say like, okay, yeah, we love you guys. We're kicking these other people out. Like you're in. And it's that, okay, now let's go get the contract done. that's when you got to catch them. So at NetSuite, we got really good at using that moment to not just like tee up the case study, but also ask for the referral of like, hey, do you know, 2, 3 other people that you can think of in your network who would want to have the same benefits or struggling with the same challenges of why we make sense for you. And that was referral was our number one lead source for sure, for all the way to
Amazing.
close transaction. Because again, it's about people. Nobody buys anything these days without calling up 3 of their friends. So if a friend's already making the intro because they took the leap, you have a better shot.
So this is a topic that's been coming up here on the show lately.
Yeah.
And also Craig and I have been chatting about this outside of the show a little bit, which is and I want to gauge how you feel about this. At this very moment, in this very climate that we're all sort of working in right now, are people just buying stuff based upon what their peers say about it? Like, are you ever like, hey, you know what? I'm curious about buying this solution. I'm going to go to this and I don't mean to shit on marketing as a marketer, but like, are you going to their website and are you going to read their ebook and are you going to read a bunch of their blog posts and are you going to go to their YouTube channel and watch their videos? Or are you just going to be like, hey, I know Sydney Sloan, Maria Pergolino, and a
Yeah,
bunch of other
I'm
really
gonna hit them
smart
up on
marketers.
text like, "Hey, I have this problem. What are you all doing?"
Right.
That yes. So I think you bring it up like that should have been one of my answers. Like this whole idea of we used to talk about how, you need to make sure that you are nurturing people and educating them on your particular space that you're in, and that they're going to do research before they come knock on your door.
Yeah.
I do think that is a bit of a fallacy these days. So this is something like I'm talking through with my team as we're going to be unveiling some new brand strategy here. So, because this is, it's been 1 year in the making. I'm 1 year in. We started the work as soon as I got here, but certainly if you go to our website today, it does not reflect the new Nintex. That'll be coming hopefully end of November, depending on when this airs. And so we are going through like prioritizing what it is we really need to do. And I'm pushing back because there's unless you're like reaching out, so you need assets in order to run
Sure.
campaigns. That
Yeah.
fact has not changed. But are people really going to go to like the blogs and SEO and try to make sure that you have content to like move them through this buyer journey? Is I think where things maybe break down a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I just think in a time period that like right now where budgets are tight and it's
Mhm.
really, really hard to get CFO approval for new things, regardless of what department you operate in, like you're just going to start with, hey, I know 4 or 5 people who are really smart and they do this really well. So I'm just going to ask them, like, what is this? What are they using as a solution for this? Is it software? Is it a services team? Like, and you just kind of cut through, well, the smartest people are using this and that's a good enough answer for me. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to go and buy it, but those are the vendors that you're probably going to pick, and they'll probably be like, yeah, we use this one, but you should check out these other 2. But like your mind's made up before you even start, even if you select 3 vendors to see a
Yeah,
demo
keep
from.
the tires on. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
100%. And look, this is not necessarily a new phenomenon. I mean, so going back to NetSuite days, like we were selling to the CFO, most skeptical buyer there is.
Sure.
Right? And we definitely saw that network effect, if I can speak today, which is why referral, like it makes sense why that was our biggest way to move the target on pipeline was um, move the needle, I should say, on pipeline was because they all talk to each other and they don't trust anything that their peers aren't also in on. So getting them, they are usually laggards.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of what you have to create is this FOMO effect, which
Yeah.
is frankly, that is how I would describe marketing's job, right? We're there to create FOMO, fear of missing out, so that people want to come be part of what you're building. Um, and you can't do that without having that sort of referral effect. And it doesn't matter how good your marketing materials are if you can't get someone to take that call.
Yeah. Yeah. Craig, your thoughts?
He looks very deep in thought. He's
Yeah.
looking We're waiting for it. What's the boom? Drop the mic.
No, there's no boom. Honestly, I agree. You know, I just I don't know. I was just thinking through all these use cases in my head. So I honestly, I'm very disappointed in myself. I thought I could do okay, I'll make 2 other points here, but I don't have anything.
Yeah, I think that there's this, brands today that are doing this well. Like, I don't really know what the secret sauce to it is. I think it's a little bit of, it's, you've got a great product, you've got great marketing, and those two things come together and they sort of naturally create this effect where, hey, like, I'm intrigued by this company, and then I use the product, or I can see the product directly from the website or through some sort of interactive demo. I don't have to go under, I don't have to give them my phone number or my email address. I can go experience it for myself. I think there's this combination that exists between those two things where this stuff works really, really well. We talked a little bit about, about Aptus, which was, just great marketing and not great product. But like today, I think it's very hard to achieve the types of results that Maria had there, or David had at Drift. Like, the product is so much more forward today than it used to be, that your constituents, your customers, your prospects, they're the people that are going to, like, they get attracted by the brand. But if they come and see the product and the product is shit, they see through it very, very quickly. So I think it's, back in the day, you could do these MVP products and you could get by on the idea that, like, this was going to be really good, or you could have, what most people would consider to be a beta product out in the market. But you've just got to be able to hit the ground running. You have to have an awesome product right off the bat if you're going to start promoting it heavily with marketing. And the three of us are very aware of somebody who is building a company right now, and that's the strategy that he's going with. Is he wants to come to market with, like, a very mature product, and I think that is what it takes today, especially when it comes to MarTech, because we've all been maybe not fooled by product, but, like, definitely fooled by marketing to believe that, like, we're gonna have something that really rocks.
You're hitting a nerve here, because, like, so the reason I took my current gig, we're in, process automation space. The reason I took it is because I think today technology was invented to make us more efficient and more
Yeah.
productive. Now we have so much freaking tech that we don't know what to do with it, and it frankly gets in the way of us actually getting work done.
Mm-hmm.
So, and this is Frank. Okay, so this ties into the trend we're seeing today. Like, every CFO, CEO, CIO are being asked to reduce their tech stack.
Sure.
And so this kind of yes, you have to have a great product that you're coming to market with, but you also, I think we all need to subtract to complete, right? I say that in about copy to my entire team all the time. Like, take words out, don't add more, which is a really hard skill to recruit for and to be good at. But that applies to our tech world as well, right? And so if you're not showing up in a way that helps people to actually get more work done at the end of the day, and is automating that process for people, then it's pretty hard out there. So
Yeah.
I don't know that we need more tech.
Wait, hold on. I now forgot Matt's what was the original question?
My original question, going back to, do people even go through funnels anymore? Do they just ask their friends?
That was actually very, very succinct and to the point. I will say this, though, is that, well, one is on the paring down of the tech stack, it actually, it was good. I mean, that process started when I was still at Gartner, and you sort of see today, which was people looked at their tech stack and there was a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, that actually was a healthy exercise.
Mhm.
But I will say, I don't think we can say yet. I think it's coming. I think well, we do have examples of where there are different reasons why someone bought a product. And I can't name names, but there are an example where the FOMO comes from the community of people that are, like, there. So like there is marketing tech to a degree where we don't, I'm not sure, Matt, you and I talked about where we didn't see the value. We never heard a lot about the value, but people still, if they went to their 5 friends, they would say, well, you go look at this.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, but that maybe that's an exception.
Yeah.
I do look, I mean, it's hard, right? Because you're a CMO, you're a CRO, whatever. And like, of course you want to take a product that works. I think what you said is a little different, which is like, it's got to show well out of the gate. Like, and that is part of, that does help you guys. But just going back to Minnie's first point and kind of what we talked about before in a previous call, which is the brand. I still think we have examples of the brand outstripping the value. Is that maybe not a ton of them, but like there are examples. I mean,
I don't think. Well, listen.
Well, yeah.
Big
You
company.
phrased the question originally as who's a surprise one, right? Like, Salesforce for sure.
What I don't think is, I don't think that there's going to be another like drift where it's like this brand comes out of nowhere and you start seeing the brand everywhere and you kind of don't even know what the product does, but you're just like, as people are talking about this thing Drift, like, what is this? Isn't it just live person? And the answer was kind of yes, but like, like, no, it's different than live person. It's a chatbot, and it goes bing when you go on the website and it gets everyone's attention. Then people start interacting with it and you get leads. But like, the marketing is what grew it out of nothing. And I don't think that like today you can be a Series A or Series B company and just have superb marketing that outstrips the product, because people expect to get to the product so fast now. If the marketing is better than the product, people are just like, oh, well, they got a good marketer, but this product's shit. I'm not buying anything.
Yeah, definitely agree. I would think I would debate, if we had more time, I would debate the point you made about you have to have it on the website and people are experiencing the product before they even talk to you. That one, look, good discovery still has to happen, because it comes back to like that unlock. You can't understand someone's business and then go help them and tell them how you're getting value out of it without doing that. So
Completely agree. And if that wasn't the point that I meant to make. I think the expectation for a lot of people today is that they can see and experience the product prior to speaking to a salesperson, right? And there's just more and more companies that are going product forward, whether that's a trial or whether that's a PLG motion, or whether it's just, here's the product, experience it. You maybe can't interact with it, but you can watch a video or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, we do talk about that a lot, by the way. I know we're at the end of time. I got lost as you guys were talking, just sort of taking in and thinking of all these examples. This is very helpful for you to reset. But Minnie, you do, as part of the customer experience today, yes, you do need to do discovery, but do you not agree that like, if like a lot of purchasing, they go to their friends, they get the referral, they don't look deeply at the product, but they look enough at what it's doing and they sort of gather, like everyone talks about the 80% down the buying cycle. In my opinion, it's referral, some look-see, some level of look-see, then they talk to sales. But like,
I think it depends on the product. Right.
Yeah.
Look, I've generally operated in more like complex. So we tested this thing 6 ways to Sunday at NetSuite, and frankly, the trial used to do us zero good, and it deterred. It made the sales cycle longer. Sales hated it. Because ERP, you can't like put your data in ERP or try out ERP. You're either in or not. So there's also different ways to slice it. Like Matt was kind of highlighting, you could do interactive demos. So that we did do. Like the dashboard was always having all of your business metrics in one place was a big unlock. So there's different ways to slice that experience piece, and it doesn't always have to look like a free trial or jumping in to it. So that's what I would encourage marketers to think about, is creative ways to get that experience. It could even be customer videos, right? Like
Mhm.
those video snippets of people talking about it, that's enough validation to get a sense for is this real?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good answer. Good answer. Good answer. All right. So you know what's happened sometimes, Matt, is we just start talking to people and then the time flies and we're at the end of time.
Well, I knew that would happen with Minnie. I was like, oh God, this is, we should have booked this for 3 hours.
Doesn't this happen with all marketers? This is a truism. We all love to
Yeah.
talk.
Not really. I mean,
Mm.
that's why when you're like, hey, what am I supposed to come with tomorrow? I'm like, just come with something to get us going, and then we'll probably take it home from there, because this is going to turn into conversation. But no, that is not the case, Minnie.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Good to know.
So anyway, look, that was perfect. Really great conversation. And coming from a real operator perspective. And so I just want to say thank you for coming on The Transaction.
Always a pleasure. We can do this anytime you want.
Well, for our new show, Post Transaction.
Yes.
There you go.
Co-host.
Thanks,
Co-host.
everyone. Appreciate you.
Have a great day.
Bye. Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Transaction. Craig and I really appreciate the fact that you've listened all the way to the end. What are you actually doing here? For show notes and other episodes, please visit us at thetransactionpod.com. Like and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other place you get your podcast from. Either you have walked away from your podcast device, or this is playing somewhere in the background. Someone in your house would really like for you to shut this off now.